Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Claire.
Thank you so much for joining me, Jeff, all the way from the USA.
All the way. Yes. Yes. Well, I thank you so much. I appreciate you. I know we've been trying to do this for a couple weeks and now it's going to finally happen. So that's good.
Yeah. Hooray.
Yes.
Whereabouts in the States are you, Jeff?
I am in Arizona,
Mhm.
Chandler, Arizona, which is the southeast valley of Phoenix. Most people know of Phoenix.
Yeah,
So we border like Mexico, California,
yeah,
Nevada, New Mexico, I guess the other side. So yeah.
yeah. Nice. And would you like to introduce yourself and talk about where your journey began?
Sure, sure. And I guess what I will do is I'll just share how we met and
Yeah,
then kind of go from there.
yeah,
So it's been maybe 2 years, 3 years. Uh, I had been asked to go over and help out in a seminar over in London,
yeah,
and it was part of a Anthony Robbins or Tony Robbins event. And one of the things that I had done is I've been on the fire team for volunteering for about 13 years for that.
wow.
And so I went over to help out in just an assistant fire captain's position at the time, but I got to meet all the UK fire teamers, and I
Yeah,
had heard so much about them prior to that. But
yeah,
it just a beautiful, beautiful group of people. But
yeah,
that's how we met, and I guess that's where I kind of start where my story starts is
yeah,
about 13 years ago in March of '07, my wife Stephanie and we had gone to participate in the same event that we were crewing at,
yeah.
and that changed our lives. It
Mhm.
really did because we had been married for 15 years at that time, and we were just roommates.
Yeah,
We were do we were hanging. It's who you hang out with is one of the things we've learned. Who you hang out with is who you become,
yeah,
and I didn't know that at the time. So we went to the event, realized we were hanging out with kind of the same people that who we were,
yeah,
and what we were is we were just roommates, married for 15 years, had two kids, doing the American dream, raising kids, doing all that stuff. And I've always wanted to go to an event like this, just one
yeah,
time. And so we went to the event, and it kindled our relationship, changed every aspect of our lives, really. And if I can just tell the story quick, is how it
yeah,
started. Is Tony talks about how if you look back and you connect the dots backwards, there's always something that maybe something at the time was like a shitty time of your life or a bad time in your life.
yeah,
And then as you look at it, so what was happening is my wife Stephanie and I, we were going to Mexico once a year in the wintertime. Kind
yeah,
of, they call it like a hot winter vacation.
yeah,
So we were going down there. We met a couple in Cabo back, so we went like '03, '04. Became good friends with them. They were on the East Coast of the US. And so we would go visit them, they would come visit us, but mainly every time we were in Mexico together, we had so much fun that we wouldn't going to leave our vacation with them until we went in and we scheduled next year's already,
yes,
you know.
yeah,
So we did that in '06, and then at the beginning of '07, they sent us a message because we were supposed to meet them back in like March of '07 to go there. They called us up and they said, we can't go.
oh,
And Steph and I were both very upset at the time. We were disappointed, I guess is the best word to use.
yeah,
So we're very disappointed in it. And Steph goes to me, well, what do you want to do? Because now let's go back. We were just roommates,
mm,
and we really didn't want to go to Mexico and sit on the beach alone because with the other couple, the guys could go do this, the girls could go do this. So we
yeah,
felt a little uncomfortable going on vacation alone,
mm-hmm,
and really didn't know it at the time, but that's what we didn't really want to do. So she goes, I don't want to go, and I said, I don't really either. And she goes, well, what would you rather do? And I just for conversation pieces, I just said to her, I said, well, I've always wanted to go to Tony Robbins live one time because I had bought his cassette tapes way back in the early '90s and I had listened to them, but I really never applied them. I knew them
Yeah.
verbatim. I could say exactly what they said on there.
Yeah.
But what had happened is I just wanted to go to them live one time.
Yeah.
So she did some research, and she said to me, she said, he's live in New Jersey. He's in March. It was 07. She goes, if you take me to a Broadway musical while we're in New York area, she goes, I'll go to this Tony thing with you. And I said, done. Compromise. Let's done. I've never been to a Broadway musical in my life. Ended up being awesome going to it. But here is the great thing. We both did not know what we were getting into. We went to this event, and the first day, Tony spoke to us in a way where I was like, wow, this is really real. This is the thing I've been dreaming about in my life. I thought, do people really think this way? Because I've been dreaming about looking for stuff like this forever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm at home. I feel exactly what this is like really talking to my soul. Yeah. So the morning of the second day, I'll never forget this as long as I live. I was in front of the mirror shaving, and Stephanie was in the shower, and I, having a conversation with her, I said to her, what's the Broadway musical we're going to? And she opened up the curtain, and she stuck her head out and looked at me from the mirror into my eyes, and she goes, who gives a fuck? She goes, I don't care about the Broadway musical anymore. She goes, I want to go back, and I want to be the first person in line to the event, because at that time you could run, the faster you could run, the closer you could get to the stage. So we were like hooked. And so that was kind of like, the rest is history. We got started on this path, and what we've done is we've just, like, Tony has some tools that you can apply, but if you apply them little by little, your life starts to change. It's just like with anything. So what we did is we came home and we started to apply some of the things that had happened to us, or what we had learned, and magically our life started to change. And we ended up having, we created new friendships with people that were around this arena, and so we didn't have stuff in common with our old friends, which was nothing wrong, right or wrong with anybody. It was just like, it was time for us as a couple to not just to move on, but it was just like we needed to grow. We started to grow, and we were going in a different direction. And so we started to do that. In the first 90 days, Steph and I combined lost like 45 pounds.
Really?
Because Tony's big into the health and big into, he says, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And so we started to get, in his language, we started to get alkalized and energized, and the weight just started coming off. Well, then what we did is we started to work on our relationship. And it's really interesting, because to work on your relationship with your spouse, most people think you need to spend more time with them and all that stuff. We did. But what changed my relationship with Steph is there's an exercise that Tony teaches, that what you do is you write down your perfect mate. Even if you have a spouse or a significant other, you still in this exercise, you write down exactly the perfect person, inside and outside the bedroom, how they would get along with people, how they get along with your parents, how they get along with, everything in their lives. And then what he did is, once you have that done, then he says, okay, now turn it around and become that person. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He says, if you want this person in your life, you have to attract them. So you have to become them. So what I did is, I'm living in the same house with the same person I've been married to for 15 years. And I just started to change who I was. And magically, she started to change to me.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I guess there's no words to describe it. It was just like I would wake up and I seen a different person. It was because I was a different person. What you're looking for, you will find. So I was out looking for things that I appreciated in myself. So all of a sudden, I started looking for things that I appreciated in her.
Yeah.
And so the relationship changed. And then one of the greatest blessings that happened is when we first went to Tony, there was we have two boys that are 24 and 18,
Yeah.
Alexander and Zachary. So we got A to Z. We got Alex and Zach, and one's 12. Alex is 12. Zach is 6 when we start this thing. So they get put into the Tony world, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so they get to grow up with this stuff.
Yeah.
So it was so much fun to watch this whole thing grow as a family. And so like 13 years later, I'm so blessed to have, a marriage of 28 years that we're on
Mhm.
fire. We just love being together. We've got two boys that we have great relationships with. And just as an example,
Mhm.
we were gone 2 weeks ago. So it doesn't matter. A couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, we took a little trip and we came home. We came home on our mirror that Steph and I share in our bathroom. It says, I love you both. And one of our kids just wrote that on there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody has like an 18-year-old or a 24-year-old, but when you get those types of things from your kids, you just like,
Yeah.
it just touches you because,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. Yeah. I hear a lot of stories, people like the kids are at the age they are, and they're like, oh my God, how's it going? How are the drugs and the girls? And, I'm like, I think they're more mature than I am, you know? So, but the greatest thing that I can say out of all of these things that changed our life are the relationships that we've made
Mhm.
from going and volunteering
Mhm.
for the Tony organization.
Yeah.
Um, and it was like the relationship, we've created together. I mean,
Yes.
we've in the last 6 months or so, maybe a little bit less than that, we've been able to talk on a weekly basis. We kind of just created a small group that we were having a coffee time together, and something a conversation was brought up where we're like, we should come to a place where we can be raw and real and we can just be heard.
Yeah.
And it's been one of the greatest things. I can't wait till Saturday mornings so we
Yeah.
can talk. So it's been fun, been a lot of fun.
Raw and real. Absolutely. And I feel like this time is a real time of being raw and real.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah.
This
It,
this
go
few
ahead.
months of everything has changed. A lot of people aren't doing their regular work. A lot of people who are doing their regular work are working differently. Um, a lot of people are under a lot of pressure in their work. People who
Hmm.
work in essential services, and,
Hmm.
and a lot of husbands and wives will have been at home together for 2 months, and will be in that place of, well, what's what's the attraction here? And I think
Hmm.
for people to have the opportunity to turn that around is such a gift.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's the opportunity right now that you can rekindle the marriage, because
Hmm.
there was a spark there at one time, or there wouldn't
Yeah,
have been a relationship or a marriage there.
yeah,
So you can rekindle it. What happens is in life, because what this whole experience that that's happening, that life is trying to teach us right now, I think it's just an experience. It's not a pandemic. It's just an experience that we're going through. And with this experience, we get to do is we get to look at our priorities again. Because when
yeah,
you are asked or told stay home, okay, all of a sudden all this busyness kind of like fades away, where you can kind of take a deep breath and you can look at what's going on in your life. And that's what happens typically, like you were just mentioning with relationships with spouses. What happens is most people, they fall in love and they get married, and then if they do, then they'll have children, and then they start a business, and
yeah,
then they do this and they do that, and all of a sudden this unconditional love that they supposedly have with their spouse, they just drop it into a priority where it's down on the bottom, where it's
yeah,
like, yeah, I'll work on my marriage, but I got to get my business up and running.
Yeah.
I've got to get my marriage, but the kids come first.
Yeah.
Well, the greatest thing that I've ever learned is that to be the greatest parent you can be, you have to have the greatest love affair with your spouse, because
Yeah.
that's what your kids need to see. Your
Yeah.
kids need to see that, because they're not going to do what you tell them to do. They're going to do what they see.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
what a greater gift to give your kids than to show what a great love affair is about, how people get along. And there's trouble that goes on, but how do
Yeah.
you deal with the challenges?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and like with Steph and I, we've worked on ourselves for like the last decade, right? So when this experience with the virus showed up, what we've done is we've created new habits. We have a little extra time. Steph was traveling. I wasn't. I travel a little bit because of work, with the contracting work. But what we've done is we've created habits where we get up in the morning and we watch the sun come up as we take a walk. We go at night when before we go to bed, we take another walk. So we call them walk and talks, but we don't
Yeah.
take any phones with us, just so we can talk. We can talk about what's going to happen during the day, or what the day was about. What happened? What happened with your work? What happened with my work? And we just have these nice conversations. And so we've taken our marriage back to another. We've raised the priority of our marriage.
Yes. You've given yourselves that time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that
It's all about time.
That time is often missing in modern life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, we put too many things on our plate.
Yes.
We really need to look and see, does this really matter? I know that we have so much time that we do with work, but the thing is we all have to work, right?
Yeah.
But it's when you're done with work, be done with work.
Yeah.
As they say, wherever you are, be there. So if you're at work, be at work. But when you're done with work and you're with your family, be with your family. Don't be thinking about work.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. So the work that you and Steph do with couples now to help them to rekindle their relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we help out with that. Stephanie still works a full-time job, and so we have created, and we do work with couples. One of the things that we've done is we've put that kind of on the back burner right now, because it takes both of us to be like on social media, sharing our stories and our gifts and stuff, and what life's going on with us. So what I have done is, I've been coaching for the last 3 or 4 years, where I've kind of narrowed it down to where I'm working with people more around their health issues.
Okay.
And with that is, I'm just helping the world get healthy once and for all. One of the things that I truly believe in is that when it comes to what's out there, it's beautiful. Everything, like all diet programs work. They do. But why do they work for some people and they don't work for others? And that's what I deal with. I deal with the mindset behind the mindset of people. So we hear a lot about mindset. Like, if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to have you need to have your entrepreneurial mindset, and we'll teach you the 5 skills that'll be your mindset to become very successful. And that's awesome. But why do only 3% of the people that purchase that program, why does it work for them and the other 97 it doesn't? Is because they haven't gone deep enough into the mindset. So the way I describe it is, the mindset behind the mindset is, what we're going to do is, we need to go back to the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is telling the conscious mind what to do. And so what we get to do is, we get to go back, find out what our narrative is, or our story,
Yeah.
And what we get to do is, once we can become aware of the story, now we can rewire or rewrite that program. So everybody, I mean, from Tony Robbins to Brendan Bouchard to everybody that has great information out there, from diet programs to life-changing entrepreneurial programs, they have all this great information. And so let's take each of those programs, and we call it like a little seed, a seed
Yeah.
that we can put in the soil and we can grow. Well,
Yeah.
that seed is going to grow, but it depends on where you place it. If you place it on concrete, it's not going to grow. If you
Yeah.
place it in rocks and stuff, it's not going to grow. So
Yeah.
what we need to do is, it's not the seed, it's the soil, it's the unconscious mind. So we need to go in and we need to look at the soil. We need to fertilize the soil. We need to dig it up. We need to get rid of the weeds. But then
Yeah.
we have to find out what's going on. So, once you understand and you deal with the fertilizer and
Mm-hmm.
the seeds and the soil, you can put the seed in. Now you can water it, and watering it would be like giving it time, and
Yeah.
it starts to grow.
Yeah.
And now when it starts to grow, your mindset behind the mindset won't sabotage you.
Yes.
And that's the only reason that people will get programs and put them on their shelves and the dust will fill on them, because they started to use them and then they stopped using them because of their story in their unconscious mind that stopped them from doing that.
Yeah.
So I have a 5-step process that they go through. There's some journaling involved where they get to deconstruct, then they get to reconstruct their mindset and their unconscious mind, and it's beautiful. I mean, I don't teach anything that I haven't never gone through, and
Yes.
I've been going through this, and it's not like you wake up one morning and you have that like aha moment and it's like life completely changed. You're just living your life doing this process, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I don't get triggered by this anymore, or I'm doing some different actions that I've never done before. Why is that happening?
Yes.
And I'm like, whoa, this stuff works. And so
Yeah.
once it started to work for me, then I'm just like, I need to share it with others.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this time has been particularly triggering for people from the conversations that I've had and from my own observations of myself, because there's been it's a time of such extremes, and there's a kind of background narrative of fear, because obviously in order to control people, it's important to tell them a very emotional story repeatedly. This is what Dan was talking about when I was talking to Dan. And so obviously that has happened globally in order to control people, in order to, I mean, to try and get people to behave in a certain way. But then that fear actually triggers people's fears that they haven't had an opportunity to deal with.
Yeah, and I'm just writing a couple of notes down here because that's totally true. As you're saying that, the first thing that I wrote down is when Steph and I participated 13 years ago in this first event that made us just look at life a little differently.
Yes.
I have not read a newspaper or watched the news in 13 years.
Yes, I mean.
So I'm in a different world. I have relatives that will come and visit us, and then they like to watch the news, and they like to watch the national news, and I'm living in a different world than they are, so I choose not to do that. And when you were talking about the triggering and the fear and stuff that's out there, the way that I describe it is, let's take like two scenarios. Let's take everybody that has the virus. Okay, so they're not healthy, right?
Yeah.
And then you have family members that are like that too. So let's put those in a category over here, and then just set them off to the side, because I want to make sure that this is as I tell this. But everybody over here,
Yes.
as the virus started to, be more national news, and it was like that was like the first conversation everybody wanted to have.
Yes.
These people over here, all the challenges and problems and stuff that started to surface, the virus did not create those challenges. It
Exactly.
revealed them.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
brought them to the surface, because if you were having marital problems or relationship problems, if you told the truth to yourself, you knew there was a challenge, but you were too scared to talk about it. You
Yeah.
would sedate it.
Yeah.
Maybe you traveled for work and you didn't have to spend that much time with this person.
Yeah.
Maybe you would go out with your friends and have a beer.
Yeah.
There was times where you just as many times as you could be away from the house, you wanted to be. But all
Yeah.
of a sudden now you're together, so now you can't blame it on the virus. You
Yeah.
got to blame it on. You got to look in the mirror, because that's
Yeah.
all about the responsibility.
Yeah.
So that's that's where all the triggering's happening right now.
Yes.
The triggering, if people would just tell the truth to themselves, they would say, I knew I had a financial problem. Now I got to deal with it. The
Yeah.
virus is just bringing it out and saying, hey, it's time for you to take a look at it
Yeah.
and fix it. Or, there's no fixing, but it would be having a different mindset about it.
Yes. 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 And it's quite a difficult subject to talk about because it's very emotive. So it's important to say that this doesn't disrespect those who have been affected in devastating ways by this virus. But for those of us who haven't, then what it's brought up was there anyway. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just time to look in the mirror. I mean, and sometimes, like as I share that with some of my clients, as I talk to them, when I first brought that up, they didn't like to hear what I had to say, because they're just like, all of a sudden they have to take responsibility for it,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that I teach. I mean, I tell people, I said, you can change your life by changing one word in your vocabulary. And you need to change the word 2 to 4. So it's not the number, but what you want to do is you want to look at your life, and life is not happening to me.
Yes.
Life is happening for me.
Yeah.
And you take that word and you just change it, and you wake up every morning and you go, okay, life is happening for me. So when something happens in my life, it's a lesson, it's a mirror. And I'm not just talking about the opportunities to grow and learn, but it's the opportunities to look and pat yourself on the back going, I'm doing something good, that's one of the things that we don't do a lot of times, is we don't like celebrate. I'll be happy when I'm a millionaire.
Yeah.
I'll be happy when the kids are out of the house, or whatever your story is.
Yeah.
But you can just be happy right now.
Yeah. When I've got a bigger house, when I'm on holiday. Yeah. When I'm this weight, when I can run this far. Whereas it's about actually the journey and enjoying the journey. It's not a destination.
Yeah. Well, here's a really interesting thing. Think about this just for a second, on how the outside world creates your emotions and your feelings. Okay. Yeah. I'll use this just as an example. We have a thing, and I'm going to go back to like ancient times, like 10 years ago or whatever, but we have this piece of paper, right? And we can flip it over, right? And as we flip it over, what it does is it has numbers and letters on it, right? So we're looking at it and we flip it over every month, right? And we call it a calendar. So when the calendar says Monday, I'm in a mood like Monday sucks. I hate life. This sucks. This is terrible. And then we've created slogans for like hump day and thank God it's Friday.
Yeah.
So on Friday, everybody's happy, and they're happy even more every other Friday when they get paid.
Yeah.
They've got, so it's this piece of paper with this letters and letters and numbers on it that tell you if you should be happy or not, right? So
Yeah.
I've told my students this before. It's kind of like, imagine aliens. We can't see them, they're invisible, but they send some people down here to watch us for a couple of years, and then they go back up, and the elders up there go, you know, what kind of people are they? What do they do? You know, what are they happy? And he's like, who's their leaders? And he goes, well, their leaders, it's weird. He goes, their leaders are this piece of paper with these names and numbers on, and they tell them if it's a Monday, they're like, they have to walk around and they have to like hate life. But a couple of days later, and then they have this thing called vacation where that like just gets them all excited. So it's really interesting. We can be just as happy today, you know, on, I don't know, this is a Tuesday, then Friday. We're just, it's just really interesting on how our minds are set. It's kind of like, you know, New Year's resolutions. That's crazy. It's October. I'm going to start losing weight, but I'm going to wait till the first of the year, and then that's it. Well, the calendar's only been around for like 500 years.
Yeah.
You know, but it's running our lives.
Yes. So true. So true. Yeah, that is so true. I used to not want to work weekends because I used to work weekends a lot when I ran markets, and having a shop, I got to the stage where it got successful enough that I had to work weekends, and it's a joy. Working Saturdays is a joy. Actually, yeah, and it is just that. It's just changing your mind about what's okay and what's not.
Yeah, it's just a
Yeah,
mindset. You
yeah,
know, look for the good, and you'll find it. Look for the
yeah,
bad, you're going to find it. It's
yeah,
there. It's always there. It's just, what are you looking for?
yeah. So I'm quite interested in your nutrition and the way that you buy and store your food. That's quite new for me.
Oh, our other conversations about how Steph and I prepare for the week.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. I'll share that. It was one of the things about time, you know, because
yeah,
we realized that time was one of our most precious resources,
yeah.
and what we had done, and I'll go back to what we were talking about 20 minutes ago, is that Alex and Zach were 12 and 6 when we first started this whole journey.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we said, how can we create a lifestyle where we can have fun while we're doing it?
Yeah.
And we wanted to have the kids involved. And so we wanted to start eating better, and we started to watch and be aware of what we were doing.
Mhm.
So how many times at like 4 in the afternoon, when you start getting hungry, you go to your spouse or you go to yourself and you're like, what should I have for dinner? What's for dinner? And then you look through the fridge and you're like, oh, that's not thought out. Oh, I should have thought that out, you know, all these things. So what Steph and we started to do is, on Sundays we would get together with the kids, and so they would be part of it. We get together Sunday, we'd have breakfast or whatever, and what we do is we come together and we would create our our food for the week.
Nice.
So it would be, you know, what's for breakfast, and we'd probably typically have two or three things to choose from, that we
Hmm.
could all choose from.
Yeah.
And then lunches were maybe leftovers or whatever, but it was mainly the dinners, right?
Yes.
And so what we would do is, like with Zach being the youngest, Mondays was his day, Tuesdays was Alex's day, Steph was Wednesday, I was Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday were kind of like, maybe out for dinner as a family on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday was just kind of a free for all or whatever. And we've gotten to where we've scheduled the whole thing, but we were trying to get the kids involved at the time.
Yeah.
So was with Zach, he would get Monday. So we had a list of foods that he got to choose from, and he would get to go. I goes, I want chicken and rice and broccoli. So we would write it down. We're gonna have chicken, rice, and broccoli, right? Alex would get to pick, and then Steph would get to pick. So what we did is with the kids at that age, we chose that during school, Monday Monday morning through Friday night, there was no electronics.
Yeah.
They couldn't have any electronics.
Yeah.
So what we would do is we started to pick family games. So
Yeah.
Zach got to pick the food for Monday dinner, and he also got to pick the family game. And
Nice.
then Alex would do it, and so on. Here's the crazy thing that happened when we started doing that. They never complained about what we picked for food because they got to be part of picking their food.
Yeah.
So and all of a sudden they realized, you're like, well, Mondays are my day. Monday's my day, you know. So they kind of took pride in wanting to come in and help all this stuff out. So what we would do is we would figure out the foods. Nowadays we have people that deliver the food to us, and then we prep it. But what we would do is we would go shopping. We'd come home. We'd prep everything. So the example I think I used with you that I use with a lot of people, I like to have a nice big breakfast in the morning.
Yeah.
And I love to have eggs. So what we would do is we'd cut up all the vegetables and put them in a container and put them in the fridge. We would cook up like turkey bacon and put it in the fridge. And then, of course, the eggs was there. So when I would get back from the gym, I would go, I'm going to have some scrambled eggs. So I would go and I get 2 eggs. I take a handful of vegetables with some garlic, put them on the start cooking it, throw in the meat, heat it up, throw the eggs in. Within 10 minutes, I would be eating it. And it was a very healthy meal for myself, right?
Yes.
Well, if I open up the fridge and I'm like, oh, I'd like to have some scrambled eggs, but I have to clean and cut the vegetables. I've got to cook the meat. I'm just like, you know what? I'll just go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you'll fall back to like, tomorrow I'll do that.
Yeah.
But once we prepped everything for the week, now you can just open up the fridge, and there's this new mindset or a different way of looking at the refrigerator when you open it up.
Yes.
And when you have like your meals set up, like with both boys being at the age they kind of fend for themselves.
Yes.
But Steph and I, we typically 80% of the time we have a salad for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we first started that, there was like 3 salads that we choose from. Now what we've done is we've gone out to different restaurants, and I love this salad. So Steph will take a picture of all the ingredients, and then she starts making it, and then all of a sudden there's some of the foods or the salads she makes now are better than ones when we go eat it there.
Yes.
So we love it. So we probably have 8 or 9 different salads we get to choose from. And as an example, this week there was 3 salads that we ate that were like, as we were eating them, we're both like, oh, this tastes so good, right? But then we ate one 2 nights ago. When we got done, we were cleaning up, and we said, yeah, we've had that too much. Let's not have that for about a month. And we both agreed. It was like, enough is enough. So it's as Tony talks about, we need variety in our life too.
Yes.
You know, in everything. And then food is no different there.
Yeah. And I love this idea, and I'm going to start doing it, of buying loads of fresh organic vegetables and prepping them. Mm-hmm. So that it's so much easier to eat healthily.
It really is, especially if it's prepared, and it takes, and it. See, I typically don't help out. I can sit here and say I do, but I help out once in a while. But Steph likes to do a lot of the prepping. I'm probably an hour and a half. For prepping everything for the week. And it's beautiful because we've invested in some glass containers.
Yes.
And so you can see through them. So we put all the the green and red peppers, and we cut them up in, like, I don't know what they call them, dicing. We dice them, and then we keep them nice and long too. So we have some different types of like almond dips. So you can just take like a carrot or a pepper and just dip it in the almond dip. Where if you just want to get a snack or something. One of the things too that we do we do it year round, but typically in the wintertime, we'll make a soup for the week. Mm-hmm. A big pot of soup, and with a whole bunch of veggies or chicken or whatever, quinoa. And and it's just heating it up on the stove for a few minutes and you have it ready to go.
Yes.
That's, to me, that's like a really nutritious and fun and easy way to have a little bite to eat at lunchtime.
Yeah. And when we were talking before, you were saying about when everything's prepped like this, it's so much easier to go to the fridge and eat healthily, whereas when it isn't, it's so much easier to just grab an ice cream or a packet of crisps, and then those really unhealthy habits creep in. And I think a lot of people have been finding that who are at home, that it's so easy. I did about 6 weeks or a month ago. I got into really bad habits of eating, and normally I don't have any issues with my weight at all, and the weight just piled on because I wasn't moving as much and I was just eating snacks really. And now I love the idea of getting back into fresh organic vegetables and salads, and it tastes so much better. It makes you feel so much better.
Yeah, it's the thought as you think about that. There are a lot of people out there that like salads, but when you say salads to them, like for me, if I have to go cut everything up and I gotta cook the chicken, if you do put chicken on it, once you in your mind you're chunking everything down to the smallest thing. It's like I gotta open up the fridge, and I gotta take this out, and I gotta wash it, then I gotta cut it, and by the time you get done with that, you're so drained, you're just like, yeah, give me an ice cream sandwich. But what are you thinking? It's the mind, it's go right back to the mindset. What's the mindset on it? Because the mindset of on Sundays taking 2 hours out of your time, 3 hours out of your time to go shopping and then prepping it. If you think about that, but we look at the end result of like, I'm going to be able to open the fridge Monday through Sunday, Saturday, and there's going to be stuff for me to be able to make something in 10 to 15 minutes.
Yes. And as life starts to get busier again, that's going to be really handy. And actually a really nice thing to do to like either really great music or a really interesting podcast. And it's that for me, it's hi Ben, hi Carolina. For me, it's always that, how do I create a lifestyle which makes me feel like I'm living a really rich and abundant life?
Well, talk about food for a little bit, just as an example, to kind of feel abundant and excited. Like Steph and I, we like to drink, a glass of wine once in a while, but mainly we like to drink like kombucha, right? And it's just good for you, right? So at night we'll get a bottle of that, and we'll go get two wine glasses.
Nice.
And we put that in the wine glasses. Like I'll make smoothies in the morning, and I'll put it in a wine glass, the smoothie in a wine glass. I'll bring it up to Steph, and I'll put like a little strawberry on the side, or what, I don't know, strawberry or a piece of mint that I made with it. But it's just something to dress it up. So you can have a great, you can feel like you're really like you're doing something special for yourself. Instead of have somebody do it, you can do it with yourself too. Just grab a different glass and put it in a wine glass.
Yes, absolutely. And it's like, this has been, I think, the perfect pause to reflect on these matters and notice how our life makes us feel, and is that how we would like to feel, and what can we change so that we can feel more like we would like to feel more of the time.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. Let's see, I don't know how long this, let's just say since January or February, this has been going on, right?
Yes.
In April, Stephanie and I went to beginning of April. We went up to Flagstaff to pick up Zach to bring him back home from college.
Yes.
And for 8 weeks, I like to drink coffee.
Yes.
So here, you can't go in any direction within like 2 miles and not find a Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
Well, I come to find out while I've been at home for the 8 weeks, we went to Flagstaff. I grabbed a small cup of coffee from Starbucks, but I had been drinking coffee at home the whole time. I like to make myself like a bulletproof coffee. I drank that coffee and I'm like, I don't really like this coffee.
Exactly.
I really don't. It's not that tasty. It was the atmosphere of me. We talking about having variety in our lives.
Yes.
I needed to get out of the house for a little bit. So me going to the shop, going to Starbucks, I felt somewhat a little guilty if I sat in their chair without drinking their coffee.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I'm having all these different types of thoughts going through my head. I'm like, really? Well, I'll still go back to Starbucks, but I think I'm going to take my thermos of my coffee and just sit and plug in and use their electricity a little bit. And I'm not going to feel guilt. I don't feel guilty of not drinking their coffee. Why should I drink something that I don't like that I can make it even better at home? But I didn't realize that unless we had this 8 weeks at home, because it was a routine. It was like, oh, I deserve to go out and have a cup of coffee, but I just need to get away.
Yeah.
And so these are the little things that are coming in, but people need to be aware of them.
Yes.
It's really interesting. When it first started, everybody on social media was like, hey, what's a great series on Netflix? What's the next great series on Netflix? You don't hear that as much anymore because everybody's just said, oh, if I didn't have to go to work, I'd get in shape. If I didn't have to go to work and I had more time, I would clean the house. Well, the first thing most people did is they sat in front of their couch and they watched Netflix. Did those people that watched all these things that they wanted to do that was on their honey-do list or the list that they wanted to get done, did they do those things when they had the time or not?
Mostly not. Because it's about those habits, isn't it?
What's that?
It's about the habits.
It's about the habits, yep. And the habits, and your action habits and behaviors are the end result of what's going up in your soil. So most people want to change a habit, yet you have to go back and go into the unconscious mind to find out why that habit was created in the first place. And if it's a habit that you don't like, you can replace it with a new one, but you have to go back, as they say, you have to go upstream first to see what the water's flowing down. You can't clean the water here and get it clean till you go up and find out what's making it dirty.
Yes. So true. So true. Yeah, so true. And I just love the idea of all these glass containers in the fridge full of chopped, ready vegetables. That's on my list. I'm going to order them at the end of this conversation. I'm going to order the glass containers.
Yeah, we just gradually picked them up because we had the plastic ones, and not to get crazy, but you get the glass ones, you can see through them better, and you get good ones, and the vegetables last a lot longer.
And it's non-toxic, and you can put it in the oven and put it in the microwave if you've got one. Yes. One of my friends and I have had this conversation. She just bought a load. Yeah.
I'm sorry. She bought what?
She just bought a load of them.
Oh, she did. Okay.
Yeah, during this time of being at home. Yeah. So looking at what's behind our habits, letting go of our old story, creating a new story, creating habits that go with a new story, putting them into action, and then the results that we get are a completely new way of life.
Yeah, and you don't have to put them into action if you decide to go back and go upstream and find out what's causing this. Once you find out what the story is, and you accept that it's just a story,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, this is a story. It's my perception. My perception came from my influences, and then from the influences, it creates a perception from between your influences and your perceptions, that creates your belief systems, and then you have expectations.
Yeah.
So when you have those are all invisible. Those were created by the invisible through the unconscious mind. So if you go back and you examine and deconstruct, so you have to find out what the unconscious mind is saying to you through some journaling. You do a certain journaling, you deconstruct it. Now you find out. So now you can accept it. You can accept that, like, it's just a story, and then you have to be aware of it. You become aware of it. So now you have to become like self-aware, be present to yourself when you're starting to do it. But then here's where the part where most people have a little challenge. Now you have to get accountable.
Yeah.
It's like, it's me. It's not, it's nobody else. You have to leave the victim role. And we talked about life is happening to me, life is happening for me, not to me.
Yeah.
So once you say, hey, this is my responsibility, and there's a lot of freedom in that.
Yes.
That's a lot of freedom in that, is when you can look at your life and going, hey, everything I have up until now has everything to do with me.
Yeah.
Well, there's some things in our lives, it's like, oh, that's yucky. But if you can accept everything, all the good and the bad, but then become aware that it's you. Now look at the freedom you have. Now you can guide where you want to go from now on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we're stuck in a difficult place, cheerfulness can be extremely irritating. Cheerfulness and positivity can be extremely irritating because we get so attached to our problems. Like Tony talks about that, doesn't he? Like we're so attached.
That's part of our identity. That's our identity.
It is. Like, well, it's okay for you, but I have been through this, and you can do that, but I can't, because and in order to let go of those things, we have to really want change.
And that's magic right there. Do you really want to change?
Yeah.
Some people like to be stuck right where they're at, and that's great.
Yes.
That's absolutely, it's perfect, because no one's broken, and until they get to the point, as Tony would say, they're like, it's in the moments of a decision your destiny is shaped.
Yes.
It's in the moments, because it's going to take a moment where you're just going to say, no more.
Yeah.
No more. I'm done. I'm changing. And then it didn't take it. Like a lot of people said, well, it took me 10 years to quit smoking. No, it didn't. It took you to that moment when you're like, that's it. No more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then once you've made that decision, then it's just uphill all the way then.
And the real interesting part when you listen to a lot of people talk is, if they would take this as what I'm going to share, if they would take this and really apply it in their lives, they'd have so much more freedom and so much, they'd be a lot more happy. Comparison is the thief of all joy. If you don't compare yourself to anyone, you have so much joy. There's so much joy, but you look at how many things you compare yourself to. You compare yourself to the people living in the big houses or the big cars or the money and all that stuff. But the thing is if you choose to compare yourself to anyone or anything, then you have to compare yourself to everything and everyone. So if you want to compare yourself to the person that lives in the $1 million mansion, you have to compare yourself to the homeless person.
Yes.
You can't say, well, I'm going to compare myself here, but I'm not going to compare myself here. You have to. So I choose to not compare myself to anything or anyone, and then the joy is mine.
Yeah.
If you take away the comparison, life is so much more freeing and so much more fun.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so much food for thought in there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, yeah. We're
I,
just having a
I,
conversation like we always do.
yeah, right, aren't we? I just love
Yeah.
this subject. It's just, I find that it just frees the mind.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think that through the last 50 minutes of us having a conversation, there's the great questions that you asked and what we had a chance to talk about. There's probably 5 or 6 nuggets that you could create a weekend seminar on, or a conversation. We could take just one of these and have another conversation for another hour just to talk about that, to
So true.
unravel something else that you could have a conversation about.
So true. So
Mm-hmm.
true. Yeah. Yeah. I think I need to run these conversations through a transcribing app and read the conversations and pick out, highlight the little nuggets, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
summarize
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Well, and I had just read, well, I didn't just read this, but we talk about taking things and learning from them.
Hmm.
I had a mindset change with the word between the word knowledge and wisdom.
Hmm.
And somebody said in the last couple of months they were talking about knowledge, and they were talking about the knowledge that we can receive, like Google. We don't need any more knowledge. You
Yeah.
can get on Google and you can find out anything you want, right?
True.
And so many great people have written books, created classes or programs and stuff that we have out there, that we have access to, that we can we can we can just, till the time we pass away, we can have knowledge coming into us. We can be learning different stuff.
Yeah.
But what this gentleman said is the knowledge that you're receiving from someone else is their wisdom of their experiences.
Mm.
So they've experienced something and they put it down in like book form and created a book, and then you get the book and you get to read about their wisdom.
Yeah.
He said that we're put on this earth to experience our wisdom.
Yeah.
So we can take other people's information and knowledge, but unless we apply it into our lives to create experiences, that experience gives us the wisdom. And we need to write our own books. Metaphorically speaking, we can write our own books if we want to, but
Yeah.
we need to get the knowledge from somewhere else or from internally. We need to experience it. And once we experience it, now we create wisdom from it. So
Yeah.
we could go and experience something and we're like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
So you just got some wisdom to go, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
But if you just keep putting your nose in front of a book, inside of a book, and just keep getting knowledge and not going and experiencing it, you're not getting any wisdom for yourself. And I think that that's what people are missing. You need to get the wisdom, So one of the things that I teach, and I've learned from one of our fire team brothers,
Hmm.
Miles, is
Oh yeah.
he shared with us, you want to go deep instead of wide, and not
So
surface
true.
stuff. So I have a couple of students that I work with where when we started to work together, I said, all the podcasts that you watch, all the books that you're reading, I said, you can go back to them, but we're going to set them off to the side. And I said, for the next 90 days or 6 months that we're working together, you're going to take a book, and I can recommend a book, or you take a book. And from that book, what I want you to do is, I said, I want you to study that book. And you're going to read 5 pages a day, 5 times, and then you're going to extract the wisdom from it, go and apply it in your life. And then I want you to share it on Facebook or on social media on what your learnings are from it. So you can
Amazing.
teach your wisdom from it. And it's a beautiful thing, because
Yeah.
if you look at like what do they call that, multitasking. you
Yes.
know multitasking is like, you know doing all these things at the same time, right? Well, if you go back and you study and do some research on the word priority, the word priority was conceived, or the definition for priority came out in like the 1500s, so like 1560 or something like that, right? For 400 years or so, it was just priority. In the 60s, they changed it to plural, and they put the word priorities in.
Oh, that's true.
So all of a sudden now we have priorities. There really is no such thing as priorities. There's only priority, you know. And if and think about this. The greatest times that you've ever learned something or you've been able to do something, it's because you focused on one thing.
Yeah.
And if you only focused on one thing, like when you get done here, you take a break and you're like, okay, my priority is I want to get some glass bowls, right? So if you focus for like 20 minutes on researching the bowls and then not getting on your phone and going, oh, I wonder what's going on Facebook. Oh, I wonder what's going on. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'll get back to that. And then like me, like, what the hell did I come on the phone for? I can't remember. So if you'd have just focused on what you were going to do, you got it done, you ordered it and was done. Now you can release it. Now it's gone out of your mind because you've done it. It's really crazy how the brain works.
That's so true, because I first looked at them about 4 weeks ago and decided which ones I was going to buy, and then got distracted by a notification, and here we are 4 weeks later.
I'm just using that as an example, and here you are. It was 4 weeks ago.
It's true. It's true. And it's true about priority as well. Yeah. Yes, such an important conversation. And I find that these conversations aren't had in normal life.
Yes and no. I would. That's just what I would say. Yes and no. If you once you start to work on yourself, life is happening for me, not to me, and you're like, okay, time is my most precious resource. If you watch successful people, they only hang out with the people that are going to have these type of conversations.
That's true.
And if not, they're very nice people. Everybody nice people, but they're not going to engage in the conversations that aren't going to expand and grow their soul, or expand and grow themselves. So they choose not to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll find anything you want, but you have to search a little. You got to search a little bit deeper to find these type of conversations.
Yeah.
Because all the rest of them, I mean, we could go down on the block right now and talk to people about the virus and the gas prices and the temperature. There's plenty of people that'll talk to you about those things.
Yes, absolutely. And what I've been doing during this time of being at home is seeking out these conversations and sharing them with people to make them more available, maybe.
Yeah. I remember when you came up with the idea, I thought it was a brilliant idea, and you've been doing it every week since, and it's been great. I've listened to most of them, got to listen to Kevin and Belle and Ben and stuff, and it's just, everybody has such great knowledge. If you just sit down and have a conversation like this, you don't have to go on to Facebook Live. You can just phone a friend and just say, I want to catch up, and you have a conversation with them and start talking about these things.
Yes. And this is the 30th one that I've put on Facebook Live.
Which one? What number?
30th.
30th. Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yes, I know it took a couple of weeks for us. We had some scheduling challenges, but now I'm glad that this happened.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me, Jeff.
Oh, yes. Yeah, anytime. I appreciate you. I really enjoy your energy. We've talked about this before, you have this energy that just draws people to you. So I'm just glad that you're doing this stuff for the world.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. And I appreciate you too. Yeah. Have a great rest of the day.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Thanks again. And let's do this again soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you,
All
Jeff.
right.
Bye bye.
Yes. Good night to you, I think.
Bye.
Bye.